1969, a great cartoon came out that's loved just as much today as it was back then. And when we heard this theme song, we knew not far into the show would come the Mystery Machine. And that was the van driven by the teens who solved all these spooky mysteries. And of course, there was always Scooby-Doo, who the show was named for. This is a toy that I used to make a 124 scale slot car with nice parts. So what I'm going to do is show you guys how I made this. Let's start with what I used to begin with. So the main problem I had was there was no 132 scale model or toy that I could use as a donor for this. The only thing I could find after doing a lot of research over, a long time was something that was about the right size from like a chocolate company or something called Bon Bon Buddies. And it was like a little toy that rolled and it had chocolates in the back. So I couldn't even really locate one of them, but I was able to find this 124 scale model. Now I don't really want to make 124 scale models. All my cars and all my models and slot cars are mostly 132 scale, but there were some instances I didn't have a choice, and this is one of them. The other two instances where I was forced to go 124 scale was the Monkeys Mobile and the Ghostbusters. Like, they had nothing that I could use. I mean, there might be some die cast in 132, but they're too heavy to make into slot cars. So for this model and a couple others, which I'll be showing you, I went with a 124 scale model. So this is from Revell, and it's a snap kit. And it looks pretty cool. It comes with these three figures, and that is Fred, Daphne, and Scooby. Now, what I wanted was I really wanted all the figures, or I definitely wanted Shaggy with Scooby, and I definitely wanted Thelma. So if you look, I bought this too. So I bought this just to get those two figures. These weren't too expensive, maybe $25, so I have all five figures and I have two Scoobies. So that's pretty cool. So this is what I started with. So let's take a look at how we made it. So here it is. Now, being a snap kit, we could snap it apart. So one thing that's going to make it real easy is we could take the top off. All right, so that's the lid. Now, on this model, it has stickers. And, I might remake these into decals, but they're pretty good stickers. So, like some of the models, like the Wacky Races came with both stickers and water slide decals. Water slide decals are, you don't really see anything. They sort of meld into the finish, the plastic finish. But these are pretty good, and I think they're good enough. Okay, so this is the roof. That snaps off. Now let's take a look at the construction. Let's look from the bottom first. So inside, underneath, I used the chassis for the car. And then what I do was I embedded a slotted Sidewinder motor pod with a very good slotted motor. And I always like to do, matching the spur gear, which is the Sidewinder gear, to the color of the car. These are on performance cars. And this is where you have a few things to do when you make a toy or a model into a slot car. You have to embed, the drivetrain and stuff. And that's always easily, you can either put your whole chassis in yourself, an adjustable chassis, or you can embed it in. And I always use these motor pods because what this is going to do is going to let me have all this lined up perfectly. So the axle, the gear, and the motor will all line up and mesh. So that's always a good way to start. Sometimes I've embedded all this stuff right into the chassis without a motor mount. But this one I did this, and it worked pretty good. It looks good. Now, and then in the front, the other big thing you have to do is you have to embed a guide of some sort. And sometimes that's easy, sometimes that's not. It looks like I needed to drop it down. I use an aluminum tube here. And this is a Scale Auto guide, and I'll show you some of the parts I use. One thing I wanted to show you guys was what I did in the front. I didn't realize this at first, but what I did was also I put in here from a slotted universal chassis, and it comes with two of these in every universal chassis, a wider and a not as wide version. And I embedded this to give it front axle action. So that worked out pretty good too. And you can see I'd used a little screw here. It's pretty nicely done. And then the real important is having the right wheels. So what I did here was I have very good wheels, aluminum wheels, and very good tires. And then I, from the toy, I, grinded these down and made inserts. So, it looks really good. Now, let me show you what I did for the figures was to hold them in place. They're pretty cool figures, so they're loopholes. I use like they look like seatbelts, but they're, ties. All right, so I did that, and that worked out good, so they don't move around. I could have done magnets, but I thought it was cool. That's the way, like, seatbelts were back then. They didn't go across the shoulder. So that worked out good. And let's look at some of the parts. So for the bigger cars, I wound up getting these parts, and I talked about Pendle Slot Car in England, and they have a great selection of parts. So let's look at, these are from Slotting Plus. So these are extra long axles. They are 70 millimeter. That's really long. So like the slotted ones, they usually come 55, 48, 60, but nothing 70. So these are great. They're nice and long. So you want that for a 24 scale slot car, right? Now you're not doing, but these aren't necessarily 24 scale parts. And then I got these wheels, which are very big too. These are almost 18 millimeter, which is very good, 17.9 millimeter. And, what I did for all the cars was I used the plastic wheel and ground it down to make an insert. So these are two important parts, the axle and the wheels from Slotting Plus. And I got this from Pendle Slot. I believe this is a Spanish company. Now, the tariff thing just came into effect. We never had to pay in America. Let me pause this. We never had to pay in America. There was an $800 exemption for stuff coming into America. We never had to pay. And whenever I sold a lot of slot cars and Magic around the world, and people always were saying, "Can you send it as a gift?" Even if, like, I'm sending back a Magic trick I repaired for somebody, they're probably going to charge the guy a tax on that. So we have that now. So I was looking at the Pendle Slot. It's still probably going to be good, just because I can't get these parts here. But also, they take off the VAT. So if you go in at the price, you make sure you log in and you put in American dollars. It'll deduct the 20% VAT. And the other thing is, if it's a European Union part, which I believe these probably are, it's 15% tariff. But if it's China, I think it's 30%. And I think the UK is 10%. So that's just a new wrinkle that we have to deal with. So that was that. Now I got these great tires also. I've only seen from, I'm sure they have them at the European stores, but these are the larger tires for Mito Slot. Okay, so I got a lot of, these are the big ones. Some of them are called donuts. They're like slicks. And then here we have like the kind I used. Now these really big knobby ones would be good for a truck. And I used these on the Peter Perfect Wacky Racer because they were the biggest tires I had. And you want a big tire. And then now I went to grind them off too. And it looked pretty cool with the knobby tire, so I left it. But I believe these are the tires I used on the Mystery Machine. And they're like, it's like a beach machine anyway, so I think they worked out well. So these are important too, these large size tires. They're for like rally trucks and stuff. So that worked out well, and it's good to have a lot of selection on hand. Now, Mitos also makes really nice, big rims and stuff, but they're very fancy rims. So now if I was going to do a car without an insert, I would use these. But since I was putting inserts in, it would be a waste. So these I would save for something else. But really nice wheels from them. Let's see. These are 17.5 millimeter, which is pretty big. So all different kinds of, you need a lot of different parts. This is a cool part too, I'll show you. Well, one more part. Well, let me show you this wheel part. This is this is from Mitos, and this is a double wheel, like a wheelie, that comes with the fly truck. So this would be replacement wheels for the fly truck. So they're making a lot of cool stuff. I don't see these brands. I don't think this brand's in America. You might find Slotting Plus, but you need to have really good variety of parts on hand if you're gonna kit bash and make stuff one of a kind. So this obviously is a one-of-a-kind slot car. I haven't seen anybody else make this. These are the guides I like to use. These are Scale Auto. You could get these in America, and they're a deep guide, right? It says 8.3 millimeter blade, so it's a deep blade, and you could trim them, and it has a Do these have a spring on them? A lot of times they come with a spring. I like it with the spring. Not sure if this has a spring, but there's about 4 or 5 different ones you could buy from them. So let's look at this stuff in action. Here's the Scale Auto guide, and it's not on the spring here, but it's brought out to be a good height for the wheel. Let's take a look at that. So you want, see, that's perfect, really perfect. And let's take a look. These are the wheels, you could see, right? Those are the aluminum wheels. I spun off the inserts, and these are those tires that look pretty cool. So I think overall all those parts were necessary to make it come together, and that's to slot it. Now I like to use these little clips on the motor, you know, just nice and neat, and a nice little blue lead wire. That's Professor Motor lead wire, and it came out very cool. Now, what else I have to show you guys on this project, I have all the figures. Let's take a look at them. So this is like an extra parts bag I keep on the side. Fred and Daphne came with the with this van, right? They're a little, you know, stiff. And then it came with Scooby. And this Scooby came with the plane, right? With the pilot's hat. But I combined, so I have Shaggy and Scooby together without this, you know, silly hat. And Thelma, she's pretty cool, right? And they look really good in there. So the figures, I always say, make the car. Now what I have here, if I had that in there, then I could use the 2 figures, you know, Fred and Daphne. But for a slot car, you don't want a lot of weight in it, and you don't want a lot of weight above the axle. The key thing to a slot car being a good performer is low center of gravity. That's why the Formula One cars are some of the best in the world, whether it's a slot car or a real car, because they're very low to the ground and there's not a lot of weight above the axle. Problem is, when this is all put together, it's just a little too tall to clear the light bridge. Now, what I did was I tried to run it around before, and I remember it going under the light bridge, like pushing it through, which is probably isn't good for my LEDs in the top of that. They're probably infrared sensors. But what I didn't do is I could take off this big PlayStation signs on my track. They're magnetic, and then it would go under that. But I didn't even do that, and it got stuck over by the PlayStation sign. So I don't have a lap to show you guys on this car, but I'll show some more laps with other cars. So this is the 1/24 scale Mystery Machine from the Scooby-Doo cartoon, made into a 1/24 slot car. I hope you enjoyed this video, and keep liking, subscribing, and commenting. Thanks. Have a good day.